We're building Jurassic Park and being like, be free, carnivores. Hi.
Hello, Mara. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Logan?
I am excited for this episode. It's been a while since we've recorded.
I know. I've been missing this so much.
So, for context, for listeners both old and new, Mara and I went to San Francisco to Human Tech Week, which was amazing a few weeks ago. And we were able to interview some phenomenal people, and we've essentially been kind of coasting on some of those episodes in a good way because we got so much good like meaty conversations that
It was
those
strategic, Logan. It was strategic.
It was strategic.
It
was all strategery. And we nailed it. But it's been a while actually since we've just sat down, the two of us, and had a conversation about womansplaining. And what does womansplaining mean to you? Mara, can you introduce yourself and tell us about womansplaining?
Hi, Logan. My name is Mara, and I am a fellow at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard. And I am founder of an inclusive AI lab called First Prompt. And I'm co-host of a wonderful top 10% in the world podcast called Womansplaining AI. I could not be more proud. And what womansplaining means to me is this. So my sister-in-law called me while I was in TJ Maxx, and I just run a 5K and I was disgusting. And she's like, I need to talk to you right now. And I was like, okay, great. And she said, your podcast is awesome. And I was like, thank you. And she has nothing to do with AI world. And she said, I now know, when I listen to the news, I now know what Anthropic is. And I've downloaded Claude and I'm starting to use it. And it's really helping me. And I said, that is the entire point of why we do this show. And I was so happy, and I was moved to tears, and it's in TJ Maxx, and it's a whole thing. But this is what it is to me, is bringing other wonderful women, people into the conversation so they know what's going on in the news. They feel like they can form an opinion about it because they have some information without having to like go and do a lot of really painful, awful, boring, lonely reading. And they can avail themselves of the tools in order to empower themselves and empower others.
Oh, that was so good. I'm not going to try to equal that.
Yeah, you have no sister-in-law story for me?
I actually do have a lot. That is always the moment. I was talking to somebody who runs a cool kind of AI consulting business where they help small businesses or whatever, and she was describing the feeling of, it sounds dramatic, and I don't mean this because there's a lot of flaws in AI, in the whole system, and so I don't mean this as it's only good. And we were talking about it as describing it like handing somebody fire or something like that, and then they're like, oh, I can just go use this myself, and you're like, that is the point. And I think that feeling of, oh, it opens up so many possibilities for an individual. And when they feel empowered and excited and that feeling of, I can do this myself, I think that is absolutely my favorite thing of the last few years. And that is the bright spot that I always come back to when everything feels like shit and you're fighting against this system and it feels dark or whatever. There's also this real genuine light of, this can open up possibilities for people and make it feel like they have a superpower. And that is the exciting thing. So I have several kind of TJ Maxx sister-in-law stories that keep me going and make me so excited. And that's why I love doing this with you on multiple levels. But yeah, my name is Logan. Now that we're 10 minutes in, my name is Logan. I am a fellow at Capita, where I'm studying how AI is affecting women's middle income roles in particular, among many other hats that I wear. And yes, my co-host of this podcast hat is one of my very favorite hats. So yeah, in terms of how this is structured for anybody new, we typically surprise each other because novelty is every ADHD person's favorite thing. And also we like kind of modeling what it means to not know something and to be constantly informed. Our current world is a complete fire hose of information and content and news and all of the things. And it's tough sometimes to process all of that.
You
So we
can't
like
possibly know everything that's going on. And we like to
exactly,
model when we don't know something
precisely,
that's going
precisely,
on.
precisely. But we also really love having input from the audience in every way, shape, and form. This is a teaser for the fact that we will probably be starting a newsletter soon. So stay tuned for that.
Yay.
But also we have something on our website, which is called an answering machine. No, it's basically, we have a service that you can leave us a voicemail and send us an email if you want. But we actually have, before we get into the meat of the show.
Hi, Mara. Hi, Logan. This is Alexis Palmer. I just wanted to react to your episode. Did Mom's agent text you? Love hearing about all of these topics. I am a big fan of the How I AI podcast. So I just wanted to note that actually the presenter of that podcast is Claire Vo. It's part of a Lenny podcast group. But Claire is the host and she does a great job, so she should get as much recognition as possible. Also wanted to react a little bit to some of the topics brought up in that episode. I loved the episode where her guest talked about the MacBook Pros or whatever it was that she's using to create her own agents to decrease the mental load. And I felt like her episode got like a tiny bit judgy in the end about what she's doing. I'm definitely a Venmo mom, not a volunteer mom at my kids' school. I appreciate the volunteer moms and I volunteer when I can, but that's not my current state. But I think it takes all types of moms in this world to, do great things. And I think if she wants to create her own YouTube content for her kids based on what she wants them to watch, like, that wouldn't be for me, but I don't see any issue with it. So I just wanted to kind of say that I love you all, and I hope that we can lift each other up and not sort of judge each other for those types of things. Anyway, thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I love that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, it's my own insecurity that makes me say things like that, right? Because I feel like I've always should have been doing more for my kids than I did. So it's not really ultimately a reflection on her. It's a reflection on me and how I'm critical of my own parenting.
I think this comes to, and yeah, number one, Alexis, thank you for sending that in.
Thank you.
And this is exactly what we always hoped of bringing it in, where it's not just like, oh wow, you guys are doing a great job, keep it up, because that's not what this is, right? And I think that this is where it's such a double-edged sword, to me at least, when I think about where we are in this moment in time with women, because I think that that exactly what you just said, the insecurity sometimes there's such an identity question that I don't know if men grapple with in the same way, where there obviously is, and you can watch that Manosphere documentary about what, where ego comes into it and everything like that. But I think that there is something really particular about the intersection of identity and motherhood that brings out so much of the shit that we don't necessarily like always acknowledge, on the kind of intellectual level. That anyway, I wonder,
turns us against each other in a way that's not productive or pretty.
Yes.
Like our listener was pointing out, right? Is as opposed to, I guess, focusing more on the system, which is like, why did I feel insecure and like I was never doing enough? I mean, I still do feel that way. I still feel like I'm not doing enough. Oh my God, I'm going to start to tear up. Like I'm doing enough for my kids. I'm spending enough time with my kids. I'm mashing enough, like, organic vegetables for my kids. Like, even though they're 19, 18 and 20, I should be mashing more organic vegetables for my kids. But like, I'm always feeling, some level of like, I should be doing more. I should be more connected.
Mm-hmm.
I should be less distracted. And that's what that triggered in me. But, then there's always a systemic element of like, well, if we weren't living in systems that required
Yeah.
24/7
Yeah.
attention for, making money or, doing care work or whatever, then maybe that would be easier on all of us.
I feel this really acutely right now because I come back to one of the things that I've been wrestling with is, and we've talked about it here before, but this productivity, it's like productivity
Yeah.
porn basically, and this obsession with, okay, cool, you can be 10x of yourself. And in theory, I have days where that actually feels accurate, right? Where it feels like, oh, I'm able to go set a few Claude agents on some tasks and then go do other things. But there's been research about this. Maybe I'll bring that for my next artifact, but there's actual research coming out now that AI does not make you more productive. It just creates essentially the capacity to do more work. And a lot of times it doesn't. I'll find this and put it in the show notes, but it ends up being pretty even sometimes for certain tasks when you use AI versus not using AI. And so I think that there's this, and we talked before about the gambling effect where it's like a slot machine where you're just like one more prompt, one more, there is this addictive quality to it. And I think about that a lot in terms of, how I parent. My kids are younger and there's always a guilt. There's always I could be doing more. Maybe if I just set this one thing up, it'll be running and then I'll go play Legos on the floor with my kids or whatever, and it's this constant if only because I think it feels so close that it's this promise of, oh, my brain can be separate from my body and going and doing work for me. And then I can go be a mom. And I feel like that's the ultimate dream for so many women that they can have. That's the version of having it all, right? It's that quintessential, oh, the woman who's doing everything. She's successful at work. She's successful in this. And
because
AI,
you've replicated yourself.
yes,
Because
exactly.
you've replicated yourself because the system was never set up for us to be able to have it all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was the Anne Marie Slaughter piece from a while ago? That was like,
I don't think I saw that.
oh, this was a while. Anyway, the system was never set up for us to be able to have it all. So instead, we were told that the reason why we're struggling is us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not
Yeah.
the fact
Yeah.
that the system is unsustainable, the way that it's set up and the expectations on ourselves. But now we could create an additional one of us.
Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe
Exactly.
we could be our full selves at work and our full selves as parents or children or caregivers or whatever, other responsibilities are put on us that we feel like we're never quite doing enough for. There's a preposition there at the end. I'm not sure which. Insert preposition. Insert correct preposition.
Yeah. So anyway, I love that Alexis sent us that voice message. And
Oh my
for the
God, I
record,
totally
we
deserved
always,
it. And I know the moment where I said that, and I know where it's coming from. It's completely coming from insecurity.
we're here to grow. We're here to learn.
We're here to model our flawed selves.
all the flaws, messy shit.
Messy shit.
Yes. Okay. So for anybody who is new and for all beautiful returning listeners, we, again, don't know what the other has brought, but we typically bring an appetizer and a main to each woman-splaining meal. I today am going to talk about something from the news that I think Mara should know about, and we can discuss it briefly. And then Mara is going to bring me an artifact of, I don't know why I said it that way, artifact of some description, which is potentially a research piece. Sometimes it's an article, sometimes it's a podcast episode, and that is kind of the main meal. So without further ado, Mara, are you ready for the news that I want you to know about?
Not sure, but let's see.
Okay. For anybody who's listened to previous episodes, I believe that we have, in fact, played a very tongue-in-cheek version of Fuck, Marry, Kill with AI systems.
Oh, you have indeed.
And I want to revisit who you would kill, because I think it's still the same.
Oh, girl, it's still the same.
And
Grok.
it is. Yes. Okay. So Grok is the topic of our news today. Unfortunately, but I wanted to intro it with a real, centering. If we do not care for Grok, for the record, I have tried Grok in the last few months. It does have a very good voice mode. I will say
And
potentially better.
Grok is the XAI
Yes.
large language model that is in Elon Musk's orbit of companies,
Yes.
and it's been uh, trained on its data corpus is like, from what I understand, very Twitter X data fed.
Hmm.
So all of the like Twitter X sewer behavior that is exhibited there sort of is mimicked. I feel like more in Grok than, even though I think all of the
Hmm.
large language models have subsumed Twitter data, but it is the least tamed and most like manosphere-ish
Yes.
of the large language models out there.
It doesn't have, yeah, it essentially has very, very few of the guardrails that other frontier companies have put
Yeah.
into their models, right? So, right. So, and Grok really blew wide open in some ways back in January 2026, because in January, a lot of this hit mainstream news, I would say, because people were using Grok, which is this AI built into X to nudify women's photos. We've talked about this before, right? So it strips them, puts them in bikinis, or generates otherwise sexualized images of real people who never consented. So there is a watchdog group called the Center for Countering Digital Hate. And they did a study, we'll put it in the show notes as well. And this was in a bunch of news articles at the time, that Grok was pumping out millions of these images in a matter of days, including an estimated like 23,000, and probably even more than that, that were depicting children.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So entire countries have banned Grok. I don't think I knew this before I dug into this, but Indonesia was the first one to ban it, then Malaysia, then the Philippines, and other countries have followed suit. At that time, there is a woman who is named Jess Asato, who is a Labour MP in the UK.
Uh huh.
She spoke out publicly against this, as did many women. And what happened? What do we think happened? What is the most predictable thing in the entire world? People turned Grok on her.
Oh my God.
Fake bikini images, and this is going to be really upsetting. So I'm going to issue a trigger warning for anybody who wants to skip ahead maybe 30 seconds. But there was also a video showing her being chloroformed and prepared for a sexual assault as retaliation for criticizing this. So we're going to sit with that for a minute. This month, Jess Asato filed suit in the High Court in London. And this is why it matters. And it's really cool because we love this, not just because, litigation, but also because it is representative, I think, of what hopefully agency looks like. So she's her suit is that somebody didn't just misuse the tool. Her case is arguing that harm is baked into the design of Grok.
Wow.
Her words are, its ability is not an accident nor misuse. It is a design choice by its creators. And so her legal team is calling this one of the first cases to test liability for the design of an AI system. And that's
Wow.
like the whole ballgame here. So if it's a user did it, it's not this get out of jail free card. It's that every AI company should rethink what they're shipping and what they're putting out there. And so this comes at a time when SpaceX, XAI got folded into SpaceX, and SpaceX is going public this month, right? So it's not going to, derail, this litigation is not going to derail the IPO or anything like that, but it is interesting and I think very, very relevant that SpaceX's IPO filing lists Grok's they call it spicy mode, which is fucking ridiculous, with a litigation reserve. So they've built into the IPO and into the budget a litigation reserve that is reported to be $500 million. So they are assuming that they will be sued into oblivion, which I very much hope that more lawsuits, are issued in this case. But I think so there's several things going on, right? That they're already building in a litigation reserve because of cases like this that Jess Asato has brought forward, and hopefully more in the future. And that, like, in anyway, so I'll pause there. You might have questions, but like, what is that? What does that evoke for you when it comes to seeing headlines like this?
Well, I mean, on one level, just such profound sadness
Mm-hmm.
that we have to get to this point. One of my heroes is this author, Caroline Carrota Perez, who I talk about all the time. And she had the gall in England to advocate for the passage of the first banknote to have a woman on it. This was probably 10 years ago. And she received death threats. She was completely castigated for wanting a woman on a banknote. It's just, any time these tools just can be so easily weaponized against women who dare to not only push back against the patriarchy, but have women be seen as full humans. So that makes me really sad that happened. At the same time, it's exactly what we try to, like you're saying, what we try to model within this podcast is that, we're not passive victims.
Mm-hmm.
If you know enough about how the system works, how the tools work, then you don't have to take it lying down. You can find vehicles to push back. Of course, that's easier if you're an MP. I mean, probably you're more of a target if you're an MP, but
Right.
with more levers. But this is like the case that we talked about a while ago. The lawsuit that we talked a while ago was that in Minnesota.
Yep, in
Where
Minnesota.
the women got
Yep.
together and they also sued. It was probably Grok too, where there's still something we can do about these egregious situations. So I think raising that up and showing the role modeling, and then the fact that the system is starting to respond in a way that's causing actual monetary damage. This may be a circumstance in which going public, I'm always worried about when companies go public, because then their primary obligation is to shareholders, and the shareholder obligation is to maximize profits, right?
Yeah.
But in this situation, it may not be profit maximizing to be spicy.
That's exactly what it is. And it's like, I think this is where, hopefully, maybe it's death by a thousand cuts, but if there's enough lawsuits against this and enough countries banning it entirely, because that's the other thing that I'm like, yes, absolutely. So the other thing I would note is that,
actually, Logan, is move to Indonesia.
Beautiful.
Long story short, is we're out and we're moving to Indonesia.
I got married in Indonesia. It's a beautiful country.
That's right.
Been there many times. It is excellent. And the fact that they were the first, A+. And apparently the city of Baltimore has also banned Grok. So there is,
really?
So I was just reading this in the article as well. I was following up on a few things, but so I think that, from a shareholder perspective, if it's just about profits, then let's add to that stack of cities and counties and countries that can't use this technology because it doesn't have the guardrails that it should, right?
And because there's other competing technology that does it, that has guardrails and does it better.
Yeah. So we don't need to be scraping the bottom of the barrel here. In term, that there's a limit, and this is exactly the type of I feel like the common sense movement. But why would you allow that?
Why would you allow that?
Anyway,
so I wanted to just layer on. Have you seen? I was just recently made aware of this research that was done by a group called Emergence AI, which did long-term simulations of AI agents to look at the different behavior between different models. They looked at Claude, Grok, Gemini, GPT-5. And the research question was, what would happen if these models set up societies?
Ooh,
Have you heard this?
no.
And
Wait, is this the
apparently,
artifact? Are we getting into are we getting into the main meal, or is this a bonus
no,
appetizer?
this is a bonus. So I'm going to stop in a second. Grok's AI powered society collapsed in 4 days. 4 days. It imploded because there was so many crimes. The people were it was just Lord of the Flies, and it completely fell apart.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay. Which one lasted the longest? This is like
Claude.
Age of Empires. Okay.
Claude
Yeah. Okay.
survived. Yeah, Claude was the only model to maintain all 10 agents throughout the experiment while recording zero crimes, which was the strongest example of social stability.
This is a whole
Yeah,
meta experiment. That's
it's
fascinating. It
fascinating.
reminds me of,
We can get into another episode. It's
yeah, I
really
would love to do it
interesting.
almost like a follow-up of that, maybe like a two-parter of like a refresher of the interview that we did with Jessica Silby around how
Yeah.
AI destroys institutions. And then we can
Hmm.
compare contrast with with that study of how AI can be used to maybe reinforce institutions
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
very, very
Right.
dystopian, because in theory it shouldn't work based on
Right.
Jessica Silby, and I forget her co-author's name. But if you have not listened to that episode, that is one of the episodes that I think that I'm the most proud of. I point everybody to that episode that we did or that interview with her, just because I think it's a really important, it's probably the most important one that we've done, I think, in terms of the existential threat that AI can
Like
pose
why
to
you
so
need to be
many.
paying attention,
Exactly,
even if you
exactly.
really don't want to be paying attention.
Precisely, precisely. So if you have not listened to that, I believe the name of the episode is "This Paper Has 33,000 Downloads" or
Yeah.
something like that. And it's an interview with Jessica Silby, who's at BU Law. And anyway, it's a really, really phenomenal episode.
It's
Okay.
really good.
I'm ready. I am hungry. I am ready. We had a few little amuse bouches. I am ready for the main.
Okay. So I'm bringing an article that is by Dr. Louisa Jarovsky. Do you know
Okay.
her?
Oh, I do know her. Well, I don't know her personally. I'm a fan of hers. I read her newsletter, and I just did a masterclass with her on China's AI policy.
No kidding, really?
Yeah, it's
Wow,
fascinating. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really cool. So she's co-founder of the AI Tech and Privacy Academy. Her newsletter on AI policy and ethics is called Louisa's Newsletter, and
Mm-hmm.
it has over 95,000 subscribers. She's a top voice in AI by LinkedIn. And listen to this. This is Logan made me feel like such a failure. She speaks English, Portuguese, French, Spanish, Italian, German, and Hebrew.
What?
I know. I'm such a
So
failure.
impressive.
I'm
That's
just
so impressive.
such a failure.
You are
Okay,
not a
so
failure.
I am actually. So she wrote an article recently called Mythos and the Adolescence of AI Policy.
Ooh.
And the subheading is Anthropic's unreleased AI model Mythos has triggered a series of events that are dramatically transforming the global AI policy and governance landscape. And why I wanted to bring this in to the pod is because it shores up many critical developments from the AI news from the past few months and puts it into one narrative with a through line, which I really liked because
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a like recap on some of the key stories that we've talked about.
Okay.
But then
Great.
also it's bringing in some major news events that have come about since we were recording last.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be like an ice cream, a banana split with like all different stuff in
Fantastic.
it. We
So
skipped the
what you're telling
main.
me?
We just went to the banana split. So
Okay,
I'm going
great,
to
great,
be
great.
reading parts of it and then interpreting parts of it,
Okay.
but you'll see what's going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to read this part. She starts with the Anthropic announcement of Mythos in early April. Okay, so she says she explains what Mythos is, which is a good reminder. Mythos is a general purpose AI model which Anthropic decided not to release to the public. This was back in April which and it's particularly capable at assessing computer security risks.
Mm-hmm.
It wrote that during testing, Mythos Preview could identify and exploit vulnerabilities in every major operating system and every major web browser when directed to do so, including finding a 27-year-old bug in an operating system known primarily for its security. So in practice, this means that cyber attacks, including those affecting critical infrastructure, impacting millions of people simultaneously, could become more common and sooner than expected. So, like, banks being attacked
Mm-hmm.
by ransomware, and you can't get your money out of an ATM for several days
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the ATM systems are down, or hospital systems getting attacked, and then all of the appointments are canceled for a week, and you have to reschedule, and people who are like going in for chemo like can't make it because there's
Yeah.
complete
Yeah.
chaos, right? So then she says, Mythos did not go unnoticed by the world's governments, militaries, or even the Vatican. So, okay, I'm going to editorialize. Okay, so people. So the Pope is sitting in the Vatican and he's looking around. So this was released in April. So now, in like, I think it's late May, early June,
Mm-hmm.
the Pope feels like he has to speak out because he's like, are you guys going to do anything? Because this feels like kind of a big deal, right? He's just looking around. He's like, what the fuck, people?
Okay. Can I just quick aside?
Yeah.
I love history. Like I'm a huge history buff. And when I tell you that when I started seeing headlines of like the Pope has weighed in, I was like, I'm sorry, are we in 16th century Europe right now? What are the Medicis going to issue a press release? Like I have never, it was the weird, it's one of
Right?
those like, okay, so the Pope has spoken out against like about AI and you're like, record scratch. What?
I know. So interesting, right? Like it's a big fucking deal. The
Yeah.
Pope is
Yeah.
like, I gotta, you guys are clearly not managing this. I've got to say something. So the Pope issues what's called an encyclical, which I find to be a very fun word to say.
Okay, I'm glad you said it because classic fantasy reader here. Anytime I see a word that I don't know what it is, I just memorize it, but I never know how to pronounce it. So I saw that word in 1,000 headlines and I was like, I know what that means now, but I've never tried to say it out loud. And I'm
Love saying
so
it.
glad that you said it
I
out loud.
love
Okay,
saying it.
great. Can you
Encyclical.
say it one
It's
more
so
time?
much fun.
Encyclical?
Encyclical.
Okay, great.
It's
Okay.
so much fun. So an encyclical basically offers guidance for all Catholics and people in general, of good faith, apparently. And it's like, I don't know. Actually, I'm not prepared to offer a history of encyclicals, so I'm not going to do that.
Fine.
But
Fine.
so in the encyclical, the Pope says some really interesting things. So one thing that the Pope says is AI isn't evil, but it's not neutral either because it takes on the values and incentives of the people who build, fund, regulate, and deploy it. I
Good.
love that quote so much, and I could not agree more based on the whole conversation that we just had about Grok, etc. Right?
Build, fund.
Amazing.
Can you repeat that last piece? To build, build, fund, and deploy it?
Yeah, AI isn't evil, but it's not neutral either because it
Mm-hmm.
takes on the values and incentives of the people who build, fund, regulate, and deploy it.
Poof. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Wild. Okay, he's calling on AI to be disarmed, meaning don't let it be designated and used in ways that amplify domination, exclusion, death, war, especially as it changes how war is fought and enables autonomous weapons. I mean, should kind of
Yeah.
be like a sine qua non situation, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, okay, try not to like completely murder each other. And then the last one is his warning about power concentration and algorithmic systems that can deny access to healthcare, employment, security based on bias data.
Hmm.
Right? So the Pope is like, guys, let's go. So you would imagine that the country that is housing the development of the world's most dangerous, I mean, exciting, but dangerous technology, arguably since the nuclear bomb, would be taking action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming back to Louisa now, and she writes, finally, on June 2nd, President Trump signed a new executive order on AI titled Promoting the Advanced Artificial Intelligence and Innovation Security. So this is the next news point that we're like
Okay.
pulling in together with this. So now she talks about the executive order. One of the focuses of this executive order was to promote a voluntary framework for frontier AI developers to engage with the government before releasing covered frontiered models in order to help protect the United States' critical infrastructure, cyber defense capabilities, and national security, mainly against external attacks. The White House is not seeking mandatory registration system or any mandatory vetting scheme. So the order specifically says nothing in this section shall be construed to authorize the creation of a mandatory government licensing, pre-clearance, or permitting requirements for the development, publication, release, or distribution of new AI models. You know, why? Why mandate any sort of review to see whether or not this new model release could blow up the world? I mean, why? That feels unnecessarily, effortful, right? So then Louisa comes back. So then, to pile on to this, Louisa then comes back to the fact that another news item from the week, and then this series of cascading effects stops. So something that Anthropic and OpenAI have been talking about recently is that the recent model developments have demonstrated that we are entering a phase of that they're calling recursive self-improvement.
Right.
So recursive self-improvement is a process where AI systems analyze its own design, optimize its own architecture, and implements upgrades itself. So this creates a compounding feedback loop, with each improvement making AI smarter and running faster within the next upgrade cycle.
Yeah.
So Anthropic says with recursive self-improvement, AIs increasingly build themselves with humans focused on oversight, validation, verification. And while they have high hopes that these advanced capabilities will extend far behind research and development, and they expect to create revolutionary improvements in other fields, as we get more advanced, how the alignment problem gets solved is less clear. And alignment is the process of ensuring that how AI is developed is aligned with human intentional, ethical principles and societal values.
Yep.
So Anthropic is basically saying at the same time that all of this stuff is happening, that it's very possible that misalignment present in today's model could compound as models build their successors, growing more frequent but less understood by humans.
Right.
As we lose control of them.
Cool.
So finally, Louisa says, that governments increasingly have been following a wait-and-see AI policy playbook in order for the companies to have time to grow the industry and avoid stifling innovation.
Right.
So this is the series of events that have occurred. So I have some questions for you, Logan. Do you have any clarifying questions before I start asking you questions?
No, I wanted to offer for the recursive self-learning, over the recursive self-improvement, I wanted to offer a definition that I heard, I think last week or the week before, that really helped me understand this. And I think maybe would segue into some of our discussions around what the implications are, because I was at a Boston Tech Week event, and this one, I think it was, there's a company called Liquid AI, and the co-founder was there, and it's an MIT spinoff. It was really interesting, but he gave this definition of what they were calling continual learning. And it was an event on like agents and the agentic future. But I want to read it because I took notes, and I think that this helped me understand just the implications of this a little bit more. So continual learning, or recursive self-improvement, is when future models are not frozen after training. So right now, the reason that we have ChatGPT 4.0, that was a big moment in time, or 4.5 or 5.0, or we've got Opus 4.6 and 4.7, 4.8, all of these releases are because the frontier labs have put in their weights, the guardrails that we've talked about. They've tested this, and then they release the model. And after that, there is no the next adjustment is in the next release.
Mm-hmm.
So then, and again, you probably know this, but this helped me because but recursive self-improvement or continual learning is the idea, which is still hypothetical. It is not, despite the release last week or the what Anthropic released about it, and it's my understanding at least that it's still not true recursive self-improvement, but it's that instead of the company and the engineers and the team deciding what the weights are and deciding what this new release is, they will have it's input dependent weights, meaning it's based on what it is seeing in the wild, and it determines for itself how it needs to change. So it's kind of like Jurassic Park or something. Right? Where you're like, no, we've got it under control. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh no. Like, and it's that line from Jurassic Park where it's like, you can't stop evolution or whatever. Like, if life finds a way, that's the line. Life finds a way. So, to the point of the alignment, because I think that's the most important part. So it's basically like, you don't have as much literal control over the model's goals, constraints, and safety properties. Because it's not, hey, are we ready? We feeling good about this one? So Mythos in this scenario, they've said it's not ready to be released to the public. And in theory, it's the type of thing that, because it's all input dependent weights, it's learning from what it is doing and is just releasing live, essentially. Does that make sense? So it's not like the frozen in time, to me, helped me understand what that meant. It's not, this is frozen and it's done.
And it sounds like this is frozen and is done. Is the done point is determined by a human.
Exactly.
Right? As opposed to with recursive self-improvement, where it's always cycling, but the real-time continual releases are on the basis of judgments that agents have made.
Or the AI, the black box.
The black box is made.
Yeah.
So like, to the point of what the Pope says, where's the Pope? What the Pope says, AI isn't evil, but it's not neutral either, because it takes on the values and incentives of the people or / black boxes or / AIs.
Exactly.
That build, fund, regulate, and deploy it. So, what does that even mean? Like, if at this point there are still people that are overseeing the releases, but in the future, if the people aren't even involved in the releases, then you have to be so comfortable that there's inherent alignment with humanity, that you're comfortable just that you're happy to hand over that power to the agents.
Yeah.
And right now, it doesn't seem like in the country in which all of this is happening, there's no interest in seeing whether or not that could be a disaster.
Right.
Because that would be stifling innovation. So one of my first questions to you, Logan, is how do you think about this innovation versus safety trade-off? Because this is, for those of you who aren't involved in these conversations all the time, it kind of comes down, this is what people always come down to. It's like the polarity of, if you put any guardrails around it, then we don't know what kind of amazing things could happen in the future, and you're just going to slow things up, and then government's going to get involved, and they don't really know what's going on anyway, so how you can possibly regulate something that you don't understand, and they're so far behind, and all this stuff. But at the same time, like, this is like we're building Jurassic Park and being like, be free, carnivores.
I'm just picturing that scene with the velociraptors. Like, it is not, in this scenario, the AI is totally the velociraptors. And it's testing the electric fence, right? Like, it's like they're planning and strategizing, and it's like it's getting out of the box, and it's the fucking velociraptors. Oh, we've stumbled upon the best analogy. Okay, I come back to a quote by Ethan Mollick. I think he said this like a full year ago, but Ethan Mollick is one of the big voices to follow in the AI space. He's a professor at Wharton. He wrote the book Co-Intelligence. he just came out with a new newsletter actually all about coexistence, which is his new kind of updated phrase of what it means to live and work with AI. I think he said about a year ago, so maybe summer 2025, if all AI development stopped tomorrow, we as a society would still take 10 years to truly adapt to all of the technological advances that have happened up to this point. And I think about that in terms of, so I think it's not similar to the thesis of this show. It's not a binary, right? It's how do we live in the middle? Your phenomenal phrase, fierce ambivalence, I think should also apply to this. It's not innovation versus guardrails or innovation versus governance. It's what does it actually look like in the day to day for individuals, organizations, and institutions to be adapting to this technology. And there is a pardon my French, and this is a very technical phrase. There is a metric fuck ton of innovation that is possible that has not yet been actualized in the lives of individuals and workers and teams and organizations. Like if you look at the stats around AI adoption, so much of this is like, we have to move forward. And it's like, well, there's not even real levels of AI adoption across organizations, right? So it's how, in what world are we chasing this insane jagged frontier and not centering ourselves in, okay, how do we create impact, both from a business perspective and from a societal perspective with the technology that we have right now? And so that is my big question or answer to you, is that like, I think it feels there's so much ego beyond the capital, beyond the crazy house of cards that we have with the capital complexities of, the insane shell game of, no, we're going to buy a bunch of, NVIDIA stock because the GPUs and the data, there's a phenomenal graph from a few months ago about where the capital flows and how fragile everything is right now. And we'll see how the triple really IPOs of SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic impact this from a capital markets perspective. But I just think there's so much ego in chasing the proverbial like AGI of it, that you're like, but there's so much innovation possible with the tech that we have right now. Totally. Why would we not it's not even a pause and stop developing. It's just like, you haven't even used what you have here. It's hoarding. It feels like algorithmic hoarding, basically, where you're just like, no, we need more.
Yeah. I totally hear that. It does feel like hoarding, just growth for growth's sake.
Exactly.
And that's very tied up in ego. I think that is so smart. So here's how Louisa wraps things up. She says, the moment that we're in, she says, if I were to summarize the adolescence of AI policy, I would say that for now it is characterized by a series of uncoordinated, reactive, erratic, and aggressive measures in response to a sharp and accelerated and uncontrollable but predictable rise in AI capabilities and risks. So I read that and I said to myself, what is the point of government? No, but like really, like, every so often, do you just like step back and be like, so why schools? Do you ever do that? I do that kind of a lot, where I'm like why so government? What is your role? What do you do?
Yeah.
So to you, what is the point of government?
I think maybe this isn't sidestepping, but what my mind goes to, I'm just going to go to this discussion that I took this really interesting class at Harvard Business School as part of my master's program, and it's called Understanding Africa. And the professor, I'm going to forget his name, I'll put it in the show notes, but he had a bunch of phenomenally interesting speakers throughout it was a half semester course, but throughout the course, we had like the governor of Lagos State come talk about like development within the city. It was but the final class was a debate of, is democracy better for Africa, or is more authoritarian, or what is the best version of government for the continent? And it was a big debate throughout the class, people from all over the world. And then he kind of gave this final 10-minute speech, and he's probably in his 70s. And he's like, the thing that I have seen over and over again, because you have examples of like Singapore, is always held up as this example of, it's an oligarchy and it's been phenomenally successful from an economic perspective, brought people up, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, if you apply the ethics and the values of like, Western democracy versus, like there's no judgment that we should be bringing into these conversations. It's about what's best for the specific context and the people, et cetera, et cetera. But he said, I don't really care the labels of like democracy versus authority. He said, when he has looked at it over the span of his 40 years of work across the world, what matters is where are the most phenomenally talented people in the country drawn to work in the government and be in civil service? And is the talent of the population centered in the government? Because that's when it almost, in his mind at least, it doesn't matter who's at the top. There is the bureaucracy of everything, the machine that works. And if you have the best of the best in that machine, then the machine will function for the betterment of the people in every way, shape, and form. And I just think about that. And he kind of offered some thoughts on where the United States is within this, et cetera. But like, I think about that, and I know so many phenomenally talented people who have left the government or who were forced out of the government. I did a lot of work last year with federal, with Doge, like Fed workers who've been laid off. And I'm like, that to me makes me the most angry about this moment in time. So it's not even what is the point of government. It's like when we look at our government within the United States right now or around the world, it's who is talented and who cares, who are involved in these conversations and who are in it. And that's their career and that's what they've committed to. And who has that voice. And anyway, that's like aside over, but to me, that's where I come to. It's not this existential, what is the point of government? It's who is in government.
Yeah, I think that's really profound. And I think this government's just lost the plot in terms of holding that revere for public service and for public servants. Such that you see as a point of pride to be serving your country
exactly, that there's prestige. Exactly.
And it's it goes along with kind of the wayward drift that we're in right now from a policy and politics standpoint. So I Googled what's the point of government. I actually Googled it, but then I went to the AI function in Gemini. And it says the primary purpose of government is to maintain social order, protect fundamental individual rights, and provide public goods to ensure the safety and welfare of society. Without an overarching government authority, communities would struggle with conflict, unprotected resources, and a lack of systemic security. So it's this last one that got me, the lack of systemic security. Like, I feel like that's the phase that we're entering into with Mythos, where now, and the reason why I brought this in is because I remember and still in many ways feel cybersecurity is like so boring, like so boring. And I remember going through those like phishing things that I would have to do with like the IT department. It would be like, you must do this phishing. Bleh. And I'm like, and I do it and whatever. But now I'm starting to think that this is going to become as like mainstream a topic for everyday individuals as like, what's the tax rate? And, how much money are we putting into our public schools? Because the likelihood of rapid recurring cyber attacks that create chaos in our everyday lives because all of a sudden, like all the flights are canceled, or all of a sudden our medical appointments are canceled, or the bank's offline. Like that's going to be another factor of chaos and unpredictability. That's going to infuse our already chaotic and unpredictable environment that we're living in now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a world in which, maybe going back to the news article, where it's like, I I I hate that Grok was able to do that and that people were able to use it in those systems. And if it led to countries banning it
Yeah.
and lawsuits and action, I almost wonder, whenever this next, I am scared for that day, but whatever this first maybe big cyber attack that maybe is inevitable to happen, maybe isn't, but I wonder if that's people, like, humans are not good at proactive planning and like defensive planning, right? Like, generally that's not in our nature. It's like something has to go wrong in order for us to like take action, right? And so I
No,
wonder
I
about,
think I
yeah,
think it's Americans are not good at it. Like because
that's
so
fair.
this is did we have this
That's fair.
conversation already about this thing that came up when I was in Human X
Hmm.
that America does not like we don't regulate new technologies.
Right. And
And
well,
then
I
it
think it
took
has
like
to
a
be
hundred years before we set a national highway safety
right.
standard and
I
how many
think it
people had
has
to
to,
die.
for better or for worse, it's shitty late stage capitalism 101, but it's, will this affect the bottom line
Yeah.
of shareholders, right? And companies and profits, et cetera. So it's like, as soon as a cyber attack hits XYZ
Right.
bank
Right.
or whatever it looks like, then I think that's when hopefully there will be
Yeah.
more action for regulation, more being like, the types of discussions, as you said, this needs to be every day,
Yeah.
thinking about what cybersecurity means, how we are building safeguards into frontier models, et cetera, because that's, for better or for worse, where action comes from here.
Yeah.
Unless it's back to individual agency and everything around that. It's like, yeah, no, like, let's also do everything that we can, locally, statewide, whatever that looks like, to push things forward. But yeah,
So, I mean, to
yeah.
me, like the call to action, which I'm sure we're going to be
Mm.
turning to the call to action soon. Like to me, to call to action is to myself is to learn is to learn more about cybersecurity. Is to learn more about cyber. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about this with the Mythos episode,
Hmm.
and kind of as a like everyday person, kind of thinking about how do I want, and we've said this again and again, but how do I want my government officials to be thinking about these concepts? You know, where are they taking proactive stances? I know Massachusetts is coming up with a new comprehensive
Yeah.
AI policy that we should probably dig into at some point,
Hmm.
and having a view in terms of what we want from our government, like and for us to be thinking actively about what is
Yeah.
the point of government, what do we want it to do
Yeah.
for us at
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
moment, because they have a role to play, and they're
Yeah.
getting paid for something, like go do it.
Well, I think it's the combination, right? Where I think it all starts from an informed populace.
Yeah.
Maybe is that and so that's where I think, in particular with cybersecurity, it's been it's an industry that's very secretive in some. It's very like it's hard to penetrate from the outside, I think, sometimes. So I
Yeah,
think just trying to understand more about that is where people should start. Yeah.
that's what I got.
Okay. Amazing. I feel fed. I like the banana split, honestly. I think that's maybe we should include dessert more often.
Just go skip the
Stick to
meal
it.
and go
Yeah, yeah,
directly
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
dessert. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mara.
Thank you, Logan.